Imagine a grand, glittering dining room, the kind you see in movies. Crystal glasses, polished silverware, and everyone dressed to impress. The air is thick with expectation, but underneath the polite smiles, you can feel the tension. That's what the G7 summit is like, a high-stakes family dinner, except the family is made up of the world's most powerful leaders, each with their own agenda and secrets. Everyone's supposed to play nice, but you know it won't take much for things to go sideways. Every year, 7 of the globe's economic heavyweights, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US, plus the European Union, gather for this exclusive event. It's not just a photo op, it's a chance to hash out the world's biggest problems, from wars to climate change to the global economy. The stakes are always high, and the world watches closely, hoping for solutions. The official goal? To show the world that these leaders can stand together, united and strong, even when their countries disagree behind closed doors. It's about projecting stability, sending a message that no matter what, the world's most powerful democracies have things under control. This year, on September 14, 2025, the summit took place in the breathtaking mountains of Kananaskis, Alberta, Canada. The setting was serene, towering peaks, crisp air, and a luxury resort tucked away from the chaos of the world, but inside the mood was anything but calm. Suited officials arrived with briefcases full of worries, ready for days of intense negotiation. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney was the host this year. His job, to keep the peace, manage egos, and somehow guide the group toward agreement. It's a role that requires nerves of steel and the patience of a saint. Tradition dictates that after days of marathon talks, the leaders emerge with a joint statement, a communiqué. It's supposed to be a symbol of unity, a carefully crafted document that says, "We've got this." But getting everyone to sign off is never easy. This year, the world outside was in turmoil. Israel and Iran were teetering on the edge of open conflict. Ukraine was still locked in a brutal war, and global trade was more unpredictable than ever. Every leader brought their own crisis to the table, and the pressure was palpable. The guest list was more dramatic than ever. Donald Trump had returned to the White House, bringing his signature unpredictability. Keir Starmer was representing a post-Brexit UK, trying to prove Britain still mattered on the world stage. Emmanuel Macron, never one to shy away from controversy, was already stirring the pot with bold statements and big ideas. With so many strong personalities and clashing interests, the stage was set for fireworks. Instead of harmony, everyone braced for drama, maybe even a diplomatic showdown. The big question hung in the air. Could these leaders put aside their differences, even for a few days, to find common ground and keep the world stable? Or would the carefully maintained facade finally crack under the pressure? Journalists and officials alike sensed that this summit would be unlike any before. The atmosphere was electric, with everyone waiting for the first sign of trouble or breakthrough. But no one, not even the most seasoned diplomats, was prepared for just how much this G7 would test the limits of international cooperation. The summit unfolded as usual. Talks, awkward photos, and the familiar choreography of world leaders shuffling between sessions. Cameras flashed, journalists jostled for position, and the air buzzed with speculation about what would be said and what would be left unsaid. As the final day approached, anticipation for the joint communiqué reached its peak. Reporters whispered in the hallways, analysts drafted headlines, and everyone waited for the official word that would sum up days of negotiation. But this time, something unprecedented happened. Prime Minister Carney stepped up to the podium, his expression grave, and announced there would be no joint statement. The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over the crowd. No gold star, no trophy, just silence. The usual fanfare was replaced by uncertainty, and the absence of a communiqué spoke louder than any carefully crafted sentence could. For decades, the communiqué was the G7's badge of unity, a symbol that, despite their differences, the world's most powerful democracies could find common ground. Even if the language was vague or full of diplomatic jargon, it was a ritual that reassured markets and citizens alike. By refusing to issue one, Canada did something radical. It admitted, openly and without apology, that their leaders did not agree, and that this time they would not pretend otherwise. It was a moment of rare honesty in a world of carefully managed appearances. This broke a sacred rule of diplomacy. Always present a united front, no matter what happens behind closed doors. The G7 had always prided itself on consensus, even if it was only skin deep. Even when Trump once unsigned a communiqué by tweet, there was still a document to unsign. The ritual was preserved, even as it was undermined. But this time, there was nothing. No paper, no signatures, no illusion. Carney's move was deliberate, not impulsive, a public admission that the cracks were too big to hide. It was a calculated risk, signaling to the world that the G7's divisions were real and could no longer be papered over. The world saw the G7's divisions laid bare. Allies looked at each other with uncertainty, and adversaries watched with interest, sensing opportunity in the group's disarray. It was like a company's board admitting, "We have no idea what we're doing." The admission was shocking, but also strangely refreshing, a break from the usual script. Suddenly, the real problems couldn't be ignored. The world's attention shifted from the usual platitudes to the underlying issues that had caused the rift in the first place. Canada had flipped the script on global diplomacy, forcing everyone to confront the uncomfortable truth: unity cannot be faked forever. The illusion of unity was gone, replaced by a new era of uncertainty, and perhaps, just maybe, a chance for more honest dialogue in the future. The summit's main disruptor, Donald Trump. His return to the world stage sent shockwaves through the diplomatic community, with leaders and analysts alike bracing for the unexpected. Back in the presidency, Trump brought his signature unpredictability, shattering diplomatic norms and upending the careful choreography of international relations. His presence was impossible to ignore, and every move he made seemed calculated to keep allies and rivals off balance. He pushed to bring Russia back into the group despite its 2014 expulsion for annexing Crimea. This move stunned many, as it directly challenged the consensus that had held since Russia's ouster. Trump even blamed the wrong Canadian leader for Russia's ousting, classic chaos. His confusion became a talking point, highlighting the unpredictability that defined his approach. His stance on Russia clashed sharply with European leaders who wanted tougher action against Moscow. The divide was clear, and it set the stage for tense exchanges behind closed doors. Trump claimed his relationship with Putin could have stopped the Ukraine war, leaving allies bewildered and skeptical. Many questioned whether the personal diplomacy could really rewrite history or change the course of conflict. He even joked about Canada becoming the 51st U.S. state. Hardly diplomatic. The remark drew nervous laughter, but also underscored the sense of unease among America's closest neighbors. Trump's mix of revisionism and off-the-cuff threats made him the summit's main event. Every statement, whether serious or in jest, seemed to carry the potential to reshape alliances or spark controversy. His presence turned negotiations into standoffs. Instead of building consensus, talks often devolved into arguments, with Trump at the center of every dispute. Finding common ground became nearly impossible. The usual give and take of diplomacy was replaced by uncertainty, as leaders struggled to predict Trump's next move. Trump wasn't just a participant, he was the storm. His return didn't just change the conversation, it redefined the entire summit, leaving the world to wonder what might come next. The Russia debate wasn't just policy, it was a clash of worldviews. European leaders, led by UK's Keir Starmer, wanted tougher sanctions to choke Russia's war machine. For them, Ukraine's fate was existential. Trump, meanwhile, doubted sanctions and prioritized US interests, undermining European unity. The result: gridlock and frustration. The tension peaked when Ukrainian President Zelensky, invited as a guest, was left waiting. Trump skipped their meeting. That empty chair spoke volumes about American commitment. The G7's core principles were in question: stand together or go it alone. Trump's actions showed his vision was radically different. The divide was too deep for a joint statement. The alliance's unity was shattered. Trade tensions added fuel to the fire. The G7, meant to promote cooperation, now felt like a game of survivor. Alliances shifting, trust eroding. Trump's America First approach favored one-on-one deals, leaving others anxious. UK's Starmer struck a bilateral trade deal with Trump, scoring points at home but highlighting the every country for itself trend. Even host Carney secured a promise for US-Canada trade talks, prioritizing national interests. The summit became less about unity, more about self-preservation. Multilateralism was fading fast. Leaders scrambled for side deals. The G7 was now a networking event, not a united front. As leaders argued, the world burned, literally and figuratively. The Israel-Iran conflict exploded, threatening global war and dominating summit discussions. Trump left early to manage the crisis, signing only a narrow statement on the Middle East. It was the one area of fleeting agreement. Iran must not get nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, Ukraine's war dragged on, draining Western resolve. Two major crises, no united response. The summit's disarray felt more dangerous than ever. With Canada choked by wildfires, you'd expect climate change to top the agenda. Instead, the G7's wildfire statement avoided even mentioning climate change. The omission was glaring. A symptom discussed, the disease ignored. This was a calculated move to avoid clashing with Trump, a known climate skeptic. Environmental groups slammed the summit as a wasted opportunity. The leaders chose political convenience over scientific reality. The silence on climate exposed the G7's paralysis. How could they sign a vision for the future when they couldn't agree on basic facts? The hypocrisy was obvious. Wildfires raged, but climate action stalled. The G7's failure on climate was deafening. Amid the chaos, Carney faced a choice: fake unity or tell the truth. He chose honesty, refusing to issue a joint statement. This wasn't anger, it was a calculated stand. Canada, usually the mediator, now called out the G7's dysfunction. Carney risked relationships, betting that honesty would be better than a fragile peace. The move aimed to restore meaning to G7 agreements. If statements are just empty words, what's the point? Carney's decision was a plea for integrity. The G7's relevance depends on genuine consensus, not staged harmony. It was a risky but necessary act of leadership. Sometimes facing reality is the boldest move. What does this mean for the future? Canada's move could mark a turning point for the G7 and global diplomacy. The age of polite fiction may be over. Real cracks can't be hidden. The world is more complex. Old alliances can't be taken for granted. Future summits must choose honest disagreement or empty show. The G7 can't go back to business as usual. Canada's message leadership means facing uncomfortable truths. The 2025 summit will be remembered as the year unity gave way to honesty.